week of COP28 here. And as a prelude, I was telling that this particular COP is quite important. We are moving to the global stocktake to see how far we have been successful in terms of implementing the Paris Agreement. And prior to that, we had all the scientific reports coming in, including the sixth assessment report of IPCC and the emission gap report for 2023 from UNEP. And all these things, including the synthesis report of GST, suggests that the world collectively, as the humanity, we are not in par with our expectations according to the Paris Agreement. We are not going to reach it. So we have now a challenge to move in a kind of a more rapid transformative pathway. Rapid means it's a narrow pathway to not to breach 1.5 degree target. And at the same time, there are a lot of hints saying that this pathway is going to be painful, costly, and very challenging too. So it's a very narrow pathway. We need to look into all the options possible to enhance our climate ambition. So Central Asia, we all know the countries are very vulnerable to climate change. At the same time, it's a region that shows leadership in terms of green economy transition, that you have high intention to transit to low carbon economy. So this particular topic is to support and bring in another aspect, how we can contribute to that ambitious targets from the region as a contribution from Central Asia. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this side event. My name is Ranga Pallavala. I'm working as the expert on climate change policy in the EU Switch Asia program. Our program is operating in 43 countries, based in Bangkok. So I'm going to be the master of ceremonies plus a moderator of the panel discussion today. So without delay, let's start the discussion. I would like to invite a partner in this particular event who helped us a lot to bring this dialogue into the Central Asian countries. The CAREC supported us a lot. The Executive Director of CAREC, Zafar Muqtadov, to welcome you all for this dialogue. Zafar, over to you.
Thank you. Dear participants, partners, guests of this event, on behalf of the Regional Environmental Center for Central Asia, I'm delighted to welcome you to this event on unlocking potential of circular economy and sustainable consumption and production for heightened climate ambition in Central Asia. This event is timely and very important for Central Asia, which is facing twin challenges of climate change and resource scarcity. We see circular economy and sustainable consumption and production offering promising solutions to these challenges. Why we? Because CAREC is currently implementing a resource efficiency and project in 2 countries of Central Asia, which is supported by Switch Asia program, about which I will tell. I'm planning to tell a little later during my interventions. Circular economy is a unique economic model that aims to keep resources the maximum value and creating new jobs for economic opportunities in Central Asia. Both circular economy and SCP have the potential to significantly reduce the green gas emissions as well, conserve resources and create, as I said, new jobs for the businesses, for the small and medium enterprises in Central Asian countries. This side event will explore the opportunities to integrate circular economy and SCP practices into climate actions in Central Asia. We will hear from our panelists today the challenges and solutions for deploying circular economy and strategies to enhance climate ambition and actions in the region. I'm confident that this event will help raise awareness of the importance of circular economy and also will lead to concrete commitments by countries to undertake actions and to accelerate the transition to a circular economy and sustainable economy in the region. On behalf of CAREC, I would like to thank our partners, ICTIC, the International Green Technology Center, and the Switch Asia program for organizing this very timely event. And also at the end, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Central Asian Pavilion, which at COP28, which is organized in close partnership with the ICTIC, the International Green Technology Center, and the governments of the 5 Central Asian countries in Central Asia. The pavilion itself is already a showcase of the region's commitment to join their efforts to combat the negative impacts of climate change and potentially take joint commitments. We have already produced a regional statement from the governments of the 5 Central Asian countries, about which I have already been telling in the previous days, and we have also read it out during 2 events earlier. So I hope that these events will help unite the region together and stand against the negative impacts of climate change. So I look forward to the discussions on introducing the new models and making maximum use of the circular economy in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Safa, for that kind words and welcoming everybody to the event. So they say side event is planned in 2 segments. As mentioned, we have a kind of a presentation. We call it kind of a triggering presentation to give the background for our discussion, which gives the angles of sustainable consumption and production, and of course, climate change. And based on that triggering discussion, we'll move into a panel discussion where we have invited some experts from the fields of related to resources and climate. And we'll have a discussion with the objective of see the opportunities, challenges, as well as potential for Central Asian countries to move ahead of integration of these 2 aspects in the world. So for the triggering presentation, may I kindly invite Dr. Zinaida Fadiva, the team leader from the of the EU Switch Asia program's policy support component, to the presentation. Zinaida, over to you.
Let me start with thanking the colleagues and our host here at the Central Asian Pavilion. We saw quite a vibrant activities here already. So every time we come, it's excellently organized, very informative, and indeed builds towards greater collaboration. And certainly we never thank enough the technical staff of the pavilion, but let me do it because it's one of the most hospitable pavilions we visited now. I visited. Thank you very much. Now, what we need to do is now again present a quick perspective on resources from the perspective from the angle of people working with resource efficiency through the lenses of sustainable consumption and production, and link it to the questions of climate. And in fact, one of the reasons for that is really to see whether through some instruments and commitments of the countries which are already in circulation, such as NDCs, the questions of material sustainable consumption and production targets could be tighter integrated in order to raise the ambitions of the countries in this area, and generally to synergize activities in the area of sustainability along different SDGs. So a few words, if I may manage the technology, which doesn't quite work. Okay, it's green button. So thank you. Perfect. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, thank you. Apparently pressing wasn't hard enough. So a couple of words about the Switch Asia program. it is the one of the oldest technical advisory, technical assistance program of the European Union to the region. We are working in we were working in 24 countries. Now we are working in 42 countries, including the Pacific and the Middle East. Previously, focus has been on Asia, including in Central Asia. Objectives are support transition to low carbon, resource efficient circular economy, with focus on supply chains and product between the region and Europe and within the region as well. Economic sectors supported are those which are considered to be heaviest in terms of polluting, including in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. And the program works through two components. One of that is grant components, where the SMEs and consumer organizations are modeling SCP practices on the ground in individual countries, and the component of policies, where we are, on request of the governments, assisting in developing framework, legislation, roadmaps for different sectors, or in general for SCP in the countries. Now, the main point which we are making, as I mentioned, is that emissions from material production do increase and do contribute very significantly in the area of climate change. Now, the recent data which colleagues from International Resource Panel have shared already today say that currently the emission has tripled. Here it's data which are rather old, but it says that between 95 and 15, 2.3-fold increase in greenhouse gas emission have happened within the span of 20 years. And it is due to the production of and processing of the either metal materials, non-metallic materials, plastic and rubber. So it's quite a serious aspect of climate comes there. The main idea behind sustainable consumption and production, as well as some other associated concepts which developed triggered by discussions around SCP, such as green economy, green growth, green industry, and currently circular economy, the philosophy and ambition to decouple resource use from economic activity, from well-being, and from impact. So while resources are being consumed in some regions somewhat higher because countries need to develop and need resources, in some regions stabilizing and decreasing, and in some, but overall as a sum, to make sure that resource use and impact from those resources are not directly correlated. Now, the material efficiency plays significant role in climate mitigation, but our point is also in climate adaptation. Now, again, with reference to the International Resource Panel, and we have with us two representatives from the panel, including the lead author of the reports, major reports of the IRP, is that life cycle emissions from certain materials and certain sectors actually are quite significant. And if we address the life cycle emission, for example, in car sector, by the 2050 across the whole supply chain, with material efficiency strategies, the gain is going to be for G7 country 40%, and for China and India 35%. Now, similar story is being told about housing sector for the homes. Life cycle emissions from homes in the G7 countries can be 35% less if material efficiency is addressed. And for China and India, it could be as much as 60% less. So those are projections, those are modeling from eminent scientists all over the world. So potential is clearly there and science is there. Now, doing a little deep dive to show, for example, for the construction sector, that low carbon design can reduce the cement and concrete emissions in construction projects for as much as 40% in the short-term perspective. So you could see that those areas where efficiency could be, or reduction of emissions are possible, are through manufacturing process decarbonization. So the whole process of production of materials or processing, through specification of the low carbon cement and concrete products. So it's a product design. And finally, optimizing the volume of materials. Not all projects require as much materials to fulfill the service function as others. So that needs to be designed. Coming to some examples from Central Asia, the project set to switch is promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy production in the community-based tourism in 3 countries of Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. And you can see in front of you the reductions, estimated or proven reductions in use of diesel and petrol after integration of the sustainable consumption production measures, or reduction also in coal consumption, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by SMEs, reductions also come as estimated climate benefit in another project which is supported by Switch Asia, which is called MOST and coordinated by CAREC, Model for Sustainable Tourism in Central Asia. And here the sustainable tourism and various measures, including with their impact for climate change, are done through the standards related to green procurement and eco-labeling. So some other examples from other regions. So that is an example which shows that textile production can be without water supported or water use in dyeing processes. So Daeco company, which is signified here on the left picture, has developed supercritical CO2 yarn and fabric dyeing, and it's being used by Clean Dye company in Vietnam as a first example at the level of the industrial policy. So clearly it's water use in dyeing process reduced to 0, and therefore water waste pollution from the dyeing process, less dye stuff used, and of course it is much more energy efficiency because among other things you also don't have to clean the water post production process. Some other examples, clear examples of the circular garment to garment. It is done by the company in Thailand, where textile recycling is done with very interesting model where the company is processing the uniform from different companies, where they would rather burn but not discard those items, simply because for many companies which are bearing a uniform of which is bearing the logo, including in the processes of overproduction, the only way so far has been burning the fabric, simply because of the logo associated with different parts of the garment, from the logo on the material itself to the zippers and buttons. So quite interesting. And what is also interesting here, that the chemicals which are extracted during the process are also put back to the process. So examples are there, but what can we do in order to reach the economy of scale for low carbon and circular product, services, technologies, and systems? Achana later on would tell us that we would need really the pipeline of those projects, and it's very, very true. So we need, in fact, the whole pipeline is important for investment, and we also need to, as a complementary measure, to pull the market towards direction of the circularity, so that it is actually the private sector investment are going on, not only investments through sort of complementary fundings which are de-risking. So we see SCP strategy as a strategy to scale up mainstream sustainable consumption and production circularity and contribute to climate. So it's really done, in our view, for climate actions where waste and pollution become a co-benefit, or the other way around. So several things need to happen for that, for transformation of market. We need really to nurture entrepreneurship. So it is a risky, innovative, quality-oriented entrepreneurship which we are needing here. We need much more innovations in this area, which is driven by circular mission. So not only at the level of own enterprise, but really having in mind the whole production and consumption cycle from cradle to cradle. We certainly need financing where de-risking of investment in circular product and SCP in material efficiency are being done. We need demand aggregation across the supply chain, but also from the public sector. At the policy level, we have to close the back door. We need to, the governments would have to issue a regulation and enforce it where simple disposal is no longer possible for certain sectors. We need to enable standards for secondary materials and energy sources so that they are not eyed with suspicion, particularly by the market, by the consumers, and we certainly need to reward innovative solutions. So once you are coming on the to the market with circular solution, it needs to be differentiated, for example, through green public procurement. So all of this would help us, among other things, to get the market transformation. Now, what we are saying effectively is that there are certain measures with respect to the efficiency of the materials in the areas like cement, hydrogen, steel, some other what we call big ticket items, where if implemented, we get huge impact in terms of climate reduction or greenhouse gas reduction. We also would have quite a number of smaller in terms of greenhouse gas emission measures, but they would be many in many sectors. So those together need to be complementing the current focus of NDCs on clean energy transport and recently food system. And together with distinguished panel, we will discuss that. So, but essentially what we are saying, we really have to treat this whole package of measures together in order through NDCs, but through some other measures to bring together contribution from the resource use reduction, circularity, and waste minimization. And finally, what is quite important is that we need to work with resources through sustainable consumption and production, through circular economy, or would we call it a green industry or green economy, from two perspectives. On the one hand, it certainly does increase the benefit for the private sector and across the supply chain and for the consumers. It increases profitability because if you don't lose something, you do something useful with the material. So you do more with less for more. And also it impacts income. It guarantees market access, particularly markets with higher paying ability. It does create job and livelihood. And it also does reduce economic and social impacts of climate change, loss of nature, and addresses increased pollution. So we are talking about decreasing in productivity losses, impact on public health, impact on infrastructure needs, whichever infrastructure we are talking about. So the final point which we are making is that working through SCP and through material perspective helps us simultaneously contribute to the adaptation and mitigation measures of the climate measures. Thank you very much. You continue.
Right. Thanks, Zenaida, to giving that overview in terms of climate as well as resources and the nexus that we are going to tap into. So as I mentioned, it's a kind of a triggering presentation. You give the overview, and based on that, what we are going to have is a kind of a distinguished panel to have a panel discussion. Of course, will be with some contribution from the audience as well. So without delay, may I invite the panelists to the podium. First, I would like to call upon ladies first. Okay, Dr. Achala Chandani Abesingha from Global Green Growth Institute. She's the director for Asia. And Achala, of course, has been coming from a very strong climate background. She's been engaged in climate change negotiations. She's been the legal advisor for the LDC group for many years through IID. At the same time, she's been one of the lead authors for IPCC fifth assessment report. So she has a scientific background as well. And from Asia, I think under her portfolio, they're supporting countries to enhance their climate ambition and green growth. So Achala, may I also invite? Thank you. So then we have the other side of the scientific community. From the other side of the equation, we are talking about the resources. So we all know the flagship scientific the panel of report in terms of resources, the Global Resource Outlook, which is a product of Intergovernmental Resource Panel. So from IRP, we have the Hans Brunsky, if I'm pronouncing it. No, okay, right. I've done it. I couldn't pronounce his surname. Sorry about it. So he's the lead author for the Global Resource Outlook for 2024, and formally he is the director for the European Environment Agency. So he's bringing the resources aspect into this. And also we have today Mr. Oljas Agabekov. Is the chairman for International Green Technologies and Investment Project Center in Kazakhstan, Oljas. And also may I invite Mr. Zafar Mukhbadov, the executive director of CAREC, and Zinaida Fadiva from Switch Asia also to join the panel for panel discussion. So let's give a round of applause for this distinguished panel. So I'll direct a kind of a generic questions for the panel for the first round, and then we'll move into the other side. So I think I'll first go towards Hans, and IRP, of course, is currently, I think, concluding the work on the next Global Resource Outlook, and you've been doing a lot of research, and Zinaida referred to some of the data that you're gathering through this process. My question is again, how IRP work actually help the process within UNFCCC, the climate ambition and climate work, and how can you complement and strengthen those aspects? Hans?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure to be representing the work of the International Resource Panel. To answer very concretely to your question, I think it's pretty obvious that the first 10, 15 years of this process were mainly focusing on the energy system, period. Yeah. And then we started to bring in other things, and biodiversity, ecosystems, land use, those things got more and more prominent for all the good reasons. I think to a certain degree, the missing link is the resource focus. Because from the work of the International Resource Panel and the Global Resource Outlook 24, which will be a key document in UNEA next year, it's obvious that without a resource focus, we will not be able to deliver on the climate objectives nor on the biodiversity objectives. More than half of our emissions are actually coming from the first two stages in our resource use. And that is the mining or the drilling, and the first step of transforming ore into something that we then call iron, that we then transform into materials. So if we do not focus on an economy that uses fewer materials and that keeps materials much longer in the economic cycle, circular economy, we will be missing quite a significant part of the emissions. It's impossible to go to net zero or to stay within 1.5 degrees below 2 without that. The same is true for biodiversity objectives, and multilateral environmental agreements have by and large ignored resource issues as fundamental. And if you link that to the SDGs, this is not just another SDG. It's the SDG on production and consumption. It's the core of our economic model.